Hello and welcome to the Spandex and Wine podcast. I'm your host, Robin Hackney, and I'm so happy that you're here. This podcast is a place for conversations about balancing a healthy lifestyle and being happy. More specifically, happy hour. Together, we'll explore all things wellness and wine. I hope you learn a little, laugh a lot, and along the way, know you're not alone on this balanced wellness journey. Ready to jump in? Pour something in your glass that makes you happy because it's time for Spandex and Wine. Hello and welcome to the Spandex and Wine podcast. I'm your host, Robin Hackney, and I think you're really going to enjoy today's episode. So whenever I put it out there and I ask individuals what they would like to hear on the podcast, a lot of times what I get back is menopause and hormones. So when I came across today's guest, Kirtsy Maginn, I knew that I had to have her on. She is an RN. She's a director and founding advocate at Hue & Grace, a company that sells hormone-safe skincare, home care products, and wellness products that also help you hydrate, detoxify, and support your blood sugar, immune system, liver, and cardiovascular health. See, she's going to be amazing. You're going to love this. You might want a notepad. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the Spandex and Wine podcast, Kirtsy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's great to see you. You are just gorgeous as always. And what the listeners don't know is that this is take 2 of this recording because the first time I went to edit it and there was only 3 minutes of content. So we're going to be flexible and do it over.
We are. And this time on Spandex and Wine, there's no wine because it's lunchtime.
Oh, dang it. I mean, we could, but it's frowned upon. It's frowned upon during the workday. But, one reason why I was so excited to have you on the podcast is because you are passionate about helping women balance their hormones. And I want to get into that and you can share on that, but also what your background is. So I'll let you just take over.
So I'm a mum of 2 and I'm a registered nurse, and I accidentally kind of slipped into this. My background that kind of gets me so passionate about this is I'm one of these women that struggled with unexplained infertility, and I'm very blessed. I have a 9-year-old that I came to us through regular IVF, and then I have 16-year-old is regular IVF, and then 7 more cycles of IVF and embryo transfers. And we completed our family with Liberty, who came to us through the gift of embryo adoption. So she's not our DNA, but I got to carry her. But as you can tell, it was like a long and traumatic experience to build our family. And through that, like 8-year cycle, a lot happened in the world of in vitro fertilization. And in vitro fertilization is those guys and women are reproductive endocrinologists. So it's all to do with the endocrine system, which is, and hormones are the chemical messengers within that endocrine system. And when I first started out trying to have Tamsin, it was just, very bada bing, bada boom, don't drink after you're pregnant until proven otherwise. And that was about it, take some prenatals. By the time I was 8 years later transferring Liberty, there was a whole different world going on within in vitro. And they were telling us things like, be really careful about your personal care products, perfume, scented candles, the things you're cleaning your house with, because these things are known endocrine disruptors. They're actually what we call xenoestrogens. So they kind of create an estrogenic-like effect in your body, and they interfere with the whole IVF process where they're trying to control your hormones to optimize for pregnancy. So, I got this grounding in this, and then I had my little Liberty at age 44, and, it was an amazing experience, but, 44 with a nursing baby, exhausting. So I ended up not going back to nursing. I was always meaning to. And instead, I kind of fell into what I love, the direct sales channel, which I think empowers women, creates communities. It's just, I love it. I absolutely love it. And so I fell into that. And then about 3 years ago, someone reached out to me because they knew my history. It was like, you need to meet this couple. They're founding this company because they had unexplained infertility. At this point, I am now perimenopausal, but I have dived into this to know that what was going on with me as a perimenopausal woman was also very much tied up with hormones and hormone regulation. So, I jumped into this company and wanting to be part of being hormone health leaders and hormone health guides is kind of the way I see myself. And, the rest is history. 3 years later, I've been building a successful business here and, passionately chasing down women, and it's so much more than just infertility. I have a friend that went through breast cancer, and she had a similar experience of being told, don't do this, don't use this, and we're told this all the time, but what we're not told is, what can we do? What can we use? How can we, swap things in and out to be safe? And, that's where I step in.
Right, right. And I know that you said that in the 8 years that you were doing the IVF, that it just, technology and all the information was just so much more vast than what it was your first time around. But I feel like the same thing happens with women in general and what we put on our bodies, what we put in our bodies, what we clean with. I feel like we're getting more and more educated, but I think that people still don't understand that how that hairspray affects your hormones and just your everyday life. So if you wouldn't mind touching just a little bit on that.
Well, I do think people are becoming much more aware of wanting to be clean, wanting to use products that are non-toxic. But, a lot of big companies are, basically greenwashing. They slap labels on stuff. And one of the biggest tricks they do, whether it's a cleaning product or your beauty products, is you'll see this thing in the ingredients that says fragrance. And while sometimes that does indeed involve fragrance, it's actually an accepted term where they can bury patents and bury other chemicals and other not safe things. There's actually a famous lawsuit that went on with Johnson and Johnson that was saying these products were free of phthalates. But yes, they were all the ingredients except for the part in the trademark fragrance. So when it was tested, it had loads of phthalates in it. So there's a lot of that kind of thing going on. But there really are when we buy that natural product that we see at the store or just something at the department store, our skin, while it is a barrier that protects us from the environment, keeps our insides in, outsides out, it's very permeable. If you think about, when I was doing IVF, I would put estrogen patches on myself and progesterone patches on myself, and they could check my blood 24 hours later, and my hormones had done this. People who are having chest pain, they put nitroglycerin on topically, and that opens up the vessels in their heart. So our skin absorbs so much, and same thing to our scalp, the hair products we use. And, the some of the ingredients in products, as I said, they're called xenoestrogens. It means that, xeno means artificial, alien. But when they're absorbed into our body reads them as estrogen and, starts acting on our bodies, causing us to be, deposit fats in unusual places. Estrogen levels affect our metabolism. They affect our appetite. They affect, mood. So when you're dysregulating that through introducing fake estrogens into our body and fake other, it's estrogens, the xenoestrogens are just one of them. It stops the way in which our body is normally supposed to be acting. The normal cycles that women go through, and men, their testosterone production. It starts, affecting all of our hormones, the cortisol, the serotonin, the melatonin, the dopamine, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, they all work in sync with each other. When one goes up, the other goes down, ideally. But when your body is being dumped with all of these other ones, they can go in there and block receptors so that your parts of your endocrine system are now no longer functioning, or they can cause them to surge out other chemicals, other endocrines, hormones within your endocrine system so that things are out of balance. And that ultimately then affects, our organs of elimination, our gut, our liver are being overtaxed. And so then that causes, when one thing goes out, other things go out.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh, it's so fascinating, and it makes me angry too at some of the mismarketing that's out there. You'll have a product that's labeled, whatever it might be labeled, organic or whatever, and you find out, oh gosh, that's not exactly what
Not
you were
really.
hoping for it to be. Yeah. So, that's as far as like putting things on our skin, but everything that we put in our body, I mean, we all know that makes a huge difference. So when we're just talking about regular diet, but there, when you come to supplements, there's also things that you can do to help yourself out. And I know one thing that you promote is collagen.
Yes. So, as we age, and really that actually the loss of collagen in our body starts at about age 30. And from then on in, our body is not synthesizing it. So that's why you start seeing signs of aging, because collagen is like the building block within our bodies. Our gut requires collagen, our hair, our nails, our skin, firmness. All of that is being driven by the amount of collagen we have in our body, and it's basically a losing battle after 30. But we can supplement with collagen that we take into our body, and there's lots of different collagens out there, and they all kind of do different things. So bovine collagen is the one that you see most commonly on the shelf. It's actually not the best collagen for it. It'll do kind of your joints and maybe a little bit with skin, but it's not the ideal one to help with skin. It does nothing for gut health. It does, nothing, for nails, and a little bit it does. But, for me, the best one out there is marine collagen. It helps with, type 1, 2, 3, and 4 collagen. I think also 5. And that is hair, skin, nails, joints, the lining of our gut. Our female tissue, as we age, our genital area also starts losing collagen, and so skin becomes fragile. There's other things going on there too, but we're literally losing the sponge there that helps everything work properly and feel good. And I've talked to very old women who just sitting down, it's painful because they've just lost all of the collagen in their whole genital urinary area. So it's supplementing is so important. But with marine collagen, the reason why it hasn't caught on as much or is kind of a Johnny come lately to the collagen party is because with any marine, too much salmon, too much tuna, too much exposure to any fish, wild caught, and this is kind of, we're all taught wild caught is better, but wild caught tends to have higher mercury levels, higher lead levels. So actually, a ethically farmed fish that has a clean environment, that's being fed properly, that the water's being maintained properly, actually you're then creating a collagen that doesn't have mercury contaminants, heavy metal contaminants. And it's you add it to your drinks, shakes, food, and you end up with a really good way of supplementing what your body's losing.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. And I know that okay, you're taking a sip. I know you believe in hydration and different products that you can use to hydrate. Obviously, we all know it's important to drink your water, but speak to what else that does in our bodies.
Well, often people can be drink a lot of water and still be dehydrated at a cellular level. It's very common amongst athletes, particularly women, say women marathon runners that are beginning at doing endurance racing, and they'll be hydrating, drinking lots and lots of water, and then their body's shedding salt, and they end up with electrolytes imbalanced, but deeply dehydrated at a cellular level while swimming in water. So just drinking isn't adequate. And then even if you have got a good electrolyte balance in what you're drinking, not everything has to be electrolyte balance, but that some of your liquid during the day should have some minerals in there and some salts in there that help your body. But your gut also has to be healthy enough to absorb properly. And that's one of the other things that we see as we age, and particularly, it's to do with our environmental exposures. So, you think a couple of 100 years ago, there weren't many, there was maybe one cleaning product, maybe, your grandmother, great grandmother might have had one, cream that she put on her face. That was kind of it. And now literally the average woman puts on 256 different chemicals in a day. And I think in men, it's about 170. And that we're exposed to in our household environment, etc. And our liver and our gut are the agents that help, detoxify. So when people talk about detoxification, it's not really a woo-woo out. It's making sure your gut and your liver does what it's supposed to do. So you have to have a healthy gut biome. And as we age with exposure and poor diet, our gut biome is just not as healthy anymore. And that healthy gut biome, works on absorbing fluids properly so that we are properly hydrated. It also helps us regulate our cortisol. And about 80% of our serotonin, the hormone that makes us feel good, is synthesized in our gut. Excess estrogen. So we were talking about all these xenoestrogens people are exposed to. Our liver and our gut actually help eliminate the excess estrogen we're exposed to, but it has to be functioning properly. So, for me, I'm very passionate about making sure you have good gut health, and that's a combination of diet. But also we frankly need probiotics to be able to restore our gut biome. And then that will give us both, hydration and absorption.
Yeah. And what would be some recommendations that you would have for building a healthy gut? Like what's something, one step that we might be able to do?
Having a very diverse, fruit and vegetables that we fermented vegetables are really good. That helps feed the gut. But also, most of us tend to have we eat the same fruit and vegetables every day. And ideally, we should be having about 30 to 40 different fruit and vegetables in a week. And that seems mind-boggling. But a simple thing you can do is, like, when you go to the grocery store, pick up one different thing that week. Go pick up mango if you don't normally do it. Go try one of the lychee or one of the more exotic star fruits, something that you're seeing at the store that you've never tried before. Go pick up some fennel. Go pick up some other things that you don't normally incorporate into your cooking, and see how. You're probably going to love it, but we tend to be such creatures of habit. So expanding the number of foods that we bring in, making sure that they're less of the processed, more of the foods that are found in their natural state is what helps our gut biome. Omegas, making sure we're getting enough fatty omegas, whether it's through food or supplementation, really is important for gut health. So these are all things that, a lot of us know intrinsically, we've been told, but a lot of us are frightened of fat. So, my generation, we're grown up like fat is bad, salt is bad. And it's actually, so when you have healthy kidneys, it's essential that we have salts. It's essential that we have good fats to help us, in so many ways.
Yeah. Oh. And I know the first time around, we also talked about sleep, and it's so funny because we always say, oh, you should get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and how important that is. But when you're perimenopause and menopausal, sleep can be a struggle. And I know you and I discussed magnesium. So if you wouldn't mind kind of touching on that a little bit.
Well, I'll take one little step back. Why perimenopausal women, and this happens to men too at a lesser extent, start dealing with sleep issues, it has to do with, as our estrogen progesterone levels drop, the our adrenals actually kick out precursors to estrogen and progesterone, DHEA, which is like the miracle hormone, pregnenolone. These are precursors to estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And so as these levels, as our ovaries, as our testes start producing less of that, our adrenals start trying to compensate with these precursors. And alongside those precursors, what our adrenals also do is pump out cortisol. And cortisol affects our sleep. So even though we've, our brains, need the melatonin and the serotonin to help with sleep and mood, when your body is now surging cortisol, which is what happens in menopause, it's very hard for our body's normal production of melatonin and serotonin to function. And so, when you've got your hormone cycles during the night, so there are some things you can do that can really help with that. And, for me, it's that magnesium is a powerful, natural way of helping with sleep, with relaxation. It's a mineral most of us are actually deficient in. And my favorite nighttime cocktail is I use some powdered magnesium and then I add some sparkling water to it and tart cherry juice. And when those are mixed together, it actually helps our body produce L-theanine, which helps us and it supports the production of natural melatonin, because we want that as opposed to oral melatonin works fabulously, but it suppresses your own natural melatonin and then it wears off and we wake up in the middle of the night. So it kind of creates this vicious cycle. So doing things that can help your natural sleep cycle, so important. And you have to be getting sufficient sleep, because otherwise your body starts, when you wake up, it starts pouring out more cortisol, which then gets you into this vicious circle with anxiety, mood issues, drinking coffee to compensate for your poor sleep. And then the whole cycle starts again. Yeah. So my other big tip is first thing in the morning. I'm not going to tell you not to have coffee, but cortisol, if you drink coffee first thing on an empty stomach, it's going to it really causes cortisol to pour out. So what I love to do, because I'm lazy, is I have protein shakes. And while my coffee is, and they're pre-made because I'm lazy, while my coffee machine is warming up and making coffee, I drink down a protein shake. And, I've then got myself about 30 grams of protein. I then have my coffee. And that's actually when you want to take your supplements, or, if you're doing hormonal supplementation, you want to do it within 30 minutes of rising, because that's your body's natural biorhythm of firing up and pouring out. It's the hormones that it needs to kind of get you going for the day and to get your body regulating and working properly. So those little tips can help you with sustained, energy during the day without getting anxious, and then being able to get to bed at night and sleeping well.
Right. And I know that you had mentioned that before about having something to eat before your coffee, and that protein shake makes sense. It also makes sense that when you're taking vitamins or supplements, to make sure that you have something on your stomach, and you don't really think of a protein shake being that much, but it is enough to maybe not make you feel a little nauseous.
Yes, exactly. And just to load up. I mean, there's a couple of things that they want on an empty stomach, but vast majority of supplements and hormones are should be and can be just as easily absorbed if you have protein in there. And it really doesn't matter whether it's food or a liquid protein.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, because a protein shake would be easy to do. A pre-made, I'm with you. I'm not going to get up and make it at 4:45 in the morning.
I know there are some people that do, but honestly, most of us are super busy. So coming up with life hacks that help you be successful is much better than doing something purely, doing it the perfect way.
Yes. And speaking of hacks, there's a health hack that you've been doing, and I don't know how long you've been doing it. I think it's fairly new, but I've been watching you with your ice bath, and I so want to get one of those pod things. So I'm curious, what you've noticed from it, and how long you've been doing it.
I've been doing it, about 2.5 weeks now, and it's
Okay.
because I live in Seattle. I'm a perimenopausal woman who lives in Seattle, and what I noticed with my perimenopause about a year and a half ago was anxiety and depression, like not really
Yeah.
depression, but more anxiety symptoms. And then
Yes.
it definitely gets worse for me in the long gray that we have here in the Pacific Northwest. When I went to see my doc a year and a half ago, I was, brain fog and anxiety. Honestly, I was like, was I beginning to, I thought, did I have early dementia? It just, I didn't feel myself. My libido had gone. I was, gaining weight despite, being careful with what I eat and exercising. I had this anxiety that appeared out of nowhere that was paralyzing. And she put me on antidepressants. And it didn't make it any better because it wasn't coming from, it wasn't coming from an innate biochemical need for antidepressants have a role for people who are clinically depressed. For me, mine was definitely tied to hormones. And so, I do the things I can to kind of manage, as I said, that cortisol, that helps too. But I need dopamine. And so cold plunging gives you this massive endorphin rush and dopamine surge when you sit. It does, it depends on the temperature, how long you have to sit there. But my pod's at about 44 degrees, and I generally tend to sit between 6 to 10 minutes. And the feeling when I come out, it's otherworldly. I get there's suddenly this heat as the blood rushes to the surface. So I warm up, and then everything's kind of tingling in a pleasant way. And then I just feel like I'm riding on feeling good all day, not in a fake chemically way, but like I just feel like I'm cruising on some kind of fuel. That's what's become so very addictive about it. I wish that some vintage champagne and a nice warm bath did the same thing. It would be much more pleasant. But it doesn't. So, for me, it's not fun. And the first time I did it, it wasn't fun. The hardest part, if you're going to do it, is you don't dance your way in. You have to get in and sit down quickly. Keep your hands out, because that is what makes it really insufferable. So I hold a warm drink, and when I sit down, I focus on breathing and feeling the warmth in my hands and sipping that. It's actually, I heat up protein shake and add coffee to it. That's what I'm sipping. And I do that. And within a minute, 45 seconds to a minute, that horrid cold burning feeling goes away, and I'm cold numb. It's hard to describe, but it's not. It's very bearable, and at that point, I can just ride out till I run out of warm drink, and that's somewhere between 6 to 10 minutes. And at that point, I get out. But it's all about the dopamine for me. There are other very good reasons why people should consider cold plunging. Our liver produces cold shock proteins when we cold plunge. It helps you with your immune system when it does that. If you're wanting, it boosts your metabolism. So if you're trying to lose weight, if that's one of your things, you're trying to boost your metabolism or lose weight, you don't want to go jump. People are like, can I go jump into a hot bath? Yes, you can, but you're not going to get the benefit of your metabolic surge as it tries to warm itself up from that, being cold. And that kind of shiver therapy, that kind of internal warming helps fire up your metabolism.
Yeah, it's
so many
so
good
fascinating.
things. But now I love it. I look forward to it, even though I hate it.
I know. I would like to try it. I mean, I've been doing the hydrotherapy like in the shower. So after my shower, then I turn it cold, like rinse out my conditioner with cold, which is really nice on my head. I used to, in the beginning, I was like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, I love it. Like I can't do a hot water rinse now.
Right.
So I think I would like that. I think I would really enjoy that.
I think I mean, and I, not to poo-poo cold shower, but you're not going to get the cold shock benefits. You're not going to get as much of the dose. What you're going to get is cold. So you get the unpleasant part without the, I mean, a good way to start, if you have a bathtub, fill your bathtub with cold water. That's not cold enough. Dump some ice in it and try it that way. And then at that point, if you do it for a week, if you commit to buying a pod, and there's nothing quite like you have that thing, you're going to do it. Find a friend, talk a mad friend into doing it with you, and everyone that has tried it, like who stays in the cold for 5-6 minutes, is like, oh, okay, I understand the addiction now. But a shower is a very good way. I have a friend that went through rehab. That was one of the things they recommended. But you're going to get the full benefits. You want to do that, your cold core rather than just part of you being cold. You want that whole internal system to kind of get cold.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I mean, athletes do it and they're top performers. So it can only help us. All right. So we had mentioned wine, and it's not of the appropriate time right now. I guess we could, but what do you pour in your glass that makes you happy?
Champagne.
Oh, I love bubbles too. Okay,
I love champagne, and I must admit I'm a bit bougie. I really do like real champagne. And I'm very fond of the Veuve Clicquot, Gadon. I've had Cristal twice in my life. It truly, like, you can taste the difference. I do. There are many American fine sparkling wines. I will drink them, but I do have that probably delusional bougie tendency. It's probably not real. It's all in my head. But if I have a Prosecco Cava, they don't seem to have the quite same layers of complexity to it than a sparkling, whether it's American or French, has. So those ones I tend to turn into a mimosa with either some orange juice or pomegranate juice.
Oh, yum. Yes. No, I love bubbles. I right now I like a Chardonnay, and I love a really bold red wine.
Oh, yes. It's definitely my winter with a meal red wine. But the rest of the year, I'm all about the bubbles.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I want to be, I want to make sure that I'm not taking up too much of your time, but would you agree to come back to doing like a part 2 so we can talk a little bit more about supplements?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, I've got some favorites.
Wonderful. Oh, good. Okay. Well, we will make sure that we do a part 2. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks. All right. Wasn't that amazing? Thank you so much, Kirtsy, for sharing all of that information. I wrote down so many notes. And I was going to touch on all kinds of takeaways like I normally do about endocrine disruptors, being careful with marketing schemes and gimmicks when it comes to products, healthy fats, protein, sleep, magnesium, cortisol, cold plunging, everything that we talked about. But then I thought, okay, let's do a part 2, like I mentioned at the end of the episode. So in part 2, we're going to go a little bit more into some of the products that she promotes. But I did mention that when we did this podcast interview the first time, number one, only 3 minutes were recorded. I have no idea how that happened instead of the entire 35 minutes that we talked. But between that time, there was a couple weeks in there and I tried some of the products and I absolutely love them and they have been working for me. So again, that's why I wanted to do a part 2, but also there's now an affiliate link for the Hue and Grace products. You can go to hueandgrace.com/spandex and wine. So go ahead and spell all of that out. hueandgrace.com/spandex and wine. And then coming up is part 2 of Kirsty's episode. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, be sure to follow Spandex and Wine so you don't miss an episode. To do this, just go to the podcast and click subscribe or follow wherever you are listening. Look for the plus sign or follow button. This is one of the best things that you can do for the podcast. If you'd also be willing to give a 5-star review, that would be amazing and much appreciated. Lastly, please share an episode with a friend or 5 to keep the love going, and join the Spandex and Wine community in our private Facebook group by searching Spandex and Wine. Feel free to reach out to me at any time by emailing info@spandexandwine.com or text me at 913-392-2877. I appreciate you. Thank you.